Our channel, as stated, is a combination of blacksmithing, farming, fabrication, livestock, tool reviews, homesteading, handcrafting, and much more. Our focus, however, is to make known our Christian faith. Sundays at 7 is geared for open discussion, education, study, and general fellowship, while presenting the message of Jesus Christ. Please interact, ask questions, encourage one another to share your faith. This is not a debate stage, nor a place to tear anyone else or their particular doctrines down, and definitely not a place for trolls. If you engage in hateful comments, questioning other people's faiths or beliefs, or if you mean to engage in debate and general ill will, our moderators will either ask you politely to cease or have already been advised to block you from comments and chats. The views and thoughts expressed on these live streams are just that. Thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the broadcast. God bless. Hello everybody, and welcome to Sundays at 7 at Bar Run Forge. Our channel, as stated, is a combination of blacksmithing, farming, fabrication, livestock, tool reviews, homesteading, handcrafting, and much more. Our focus, however, is to make known our Christian faith. Sundays at 7 is geared for open discussion, education, study, and general fellowship, while presenting the message of Jesus Christ. Please interact, ask questions, encourage one another to share your faith. This is not a debate stage, nor a place to tear anyone else or their particular doctrines down, and definitely not a place for trolls. If you engage in hateful comments, questioning other people's faiths or beliefs, or if you mean to engage in debate and general ill will, our moderators will either ask you politely to cease or have already been advised to block you from comments and chats. The views and thoughts expressed on these live streams are just that. Thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the broadcast. God bless. Oh, I thought you were going to at least give me a warning.
Oh, there's not really a warning because the way the intro is set up, it just kind of goes on a loop.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. Those of you that are in here, welcome back to Sundays at 7. Are we good?
Yeah, welcome back to Bar Run Forge. Sorry for missing Thursday.
Well, we did miss Thursday, the live stream, because, priority was the farm. And so we got everything ready to go, and, we can get corn in the ground, and we did. We got corn in the ground. And then the following day, we got beans in the ground. So we are 100% planted here on the farm, except for a couple of crops.
Yeah, buddy.
Come later. So we'll say hi real quick to Drew Wilson, Dana and Ev, D.E. Mag, Roger Caldwell, and Pumpkin Patch, Forge and Iron Works. Great to have everybody in here with us.
Got 11 in here, but not all y'all are talking and chatting.
Say hello in the chats.
Say hey.
And while we're saying hello in the chats, last time I want to take a quick second to thank Alec Elam, our co-host from last time we were together, and Alec did a really good job with co-hosting, and I think he had a pretty good time.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
Yep. We didn't get any screenshot of some of the questions, and I didn't get a chance to go up there and find them. So if you guys do have particular questions that you want to ask, then the genie's here too. Well, good. That's good to hear, Roger. 12, the wife is watching. We got others watching. That's great. So if you guys do have questions, please take the time right now to put them up in the chat so we can look at them. I've got a few thoughts I want to go over here.
Got PSV Odyssey in here as well, cooking and listening.
Fantastic. And again, if we don't know your name, we're not saying it out loud, maybe because we've forgotten or we're just kind of zoning out, but let us know. But yeah, if you've got questions, spiritual, biblical, theological questions, please ask them. Again, we kind of preface everything by saying this is not the end-all, be-all. This is not the total answer for all these. This is our best response to those questions and to those thoughts. We've got some things here that we're going to discuss. I'm not going to speak from any level of authority other than, just I've been in ministry for 30 years and I've been at this for a while and do have some knowledge of language and biblical education. So if you would give us a little bit of grace and we'll go through this together. I know you've watched the preempting video there. We kind of lay that all out. As we've said before, if you're here to troll and cause trouble, go away or just sit and listen.
Yep.
PSV Odyssey. Paul.
You can be able to talk.
Yeah, Paul S. Vines. I guess that's the PSV.
There you go.
So good to have you
is
here,
that a
Paul.
biblical translation?
Yeah, that's right, Paul. The PSV. So anyway, it's great to have you guys in here. This is our third one or fourth? Third?
I believe third.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, it is fourth.
Is it fourth?
Yeah, it is fourth. Because we did one and then we did a response.
Yeah, we did the first one. Yeah, so this is number 4.
So this is our fourth Sundays at 7, and we would love to see this grow. If it needs to, that's fine. Hello, Bill. Bill Wheel, good to have you in here. So anyway, again, if you got those questions, bring them on, and we'll get into some thoughts here today. Chances are, when we come to our Sundays at 7, some of my shared thoughts are probably going to be from either this morning's message or last week's message. Obviously, last week was Easter, and we could share some of that as well. But I'm going to share a little bit from this morning's message.
This morning's message was good. So y'all in for a treat. If you don't, and I'll do a little shameless plug, even though it's not a total plug. If you don't already, check out either my Facebook page, the Bar Run Forge Facebook page. Sometimes I put it up on there. But we live stream our church service every Sunday, 10 a.m., barring no crazy technical difficulties. You all know we have technical difficulties here and everywhere that has technical things. So, but yeah, usually I'll share the live stream there at 10 a.m. on my Facebook page. So if you're not a friend with me on Facebook, you can add me there, or you can just go to Martinsville Church of Christ. That's where the live stream is at. But you get kind of more of this and more of the sermon form and get to see our church worship and just overall a good time.
Yeah, definitely. And the sad part about I say the sad part about our live stream for the church on Facebook Live is you really don't get a sense. It's just kind of, it's as best you can from that. We have just an amazing body of family there at Martinsville, and they're just so loving, so caring, easy going, and we're just stupid blessed to have them.
I would dare say stupid blessed.
Definitely. So anyway, so we'll get into a little bit of thoughts here this evening at our Sundays at 7, as it says right back there.
Sundays at 7:07.
Yeah, we're 7:07 for you.
There you go.
Anyway, so we're going to be in James chapter 5, verses 19 and 20, and I think a lot of this speaks to more along the lines not of evangelism, but of helping somebody come back to Jesus and return to God. And so I'm going to go ahead and read it here in just a second, and then we'll kind of discuss our role in this. And if you are not a current believer or have strayed away, we want to grasp you in this as well. So in James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20, it says, "My brothers, if one of you should wander from the truth, and someone should bring him back." Verse 20, "Remember this, whoever turns a sinner from the error of his way will save him from death and cover over a multitude of sins." That is encouraging, for sure. What I wanted to kind of look at this as an illustration from the perspective of going after or seeking after someone who has kind of strayed away. I will say hi to Kenny, Metal Man Productions. Hopefully he's able to work things out for this weekend, this coming weekend. Um, and I'm going to throw a term out there that maybe is misunderstood a bit. And that term, excuse me, April, second week in April here.
And not to mention that we cleaned out an entire barn worth of straw yesterday. So both of us are fighting off a little cough and cold, but we're powerful. We're powering through. That's all. Yeah, Roger said powerful scripture and it threw me off. Sorry, go ahead.
So this word that gets thrown around a bit, that may be misunderstood a bit, that I want to kind of put my version of the definition on this, is apostate or apostasy. And again, I'm not working from a clinical definition. I'm not working from necessarily the ultimate biblical definition. This is kind of the TRV. This is the Troy Roush version of it. So apostate or an apostasy, or someone who's been apostatized, if we look at the roots of those words, that word is very simple idea that it's like a sheep who'd wandered away. So someone who has been a part of the flock, but then has strayed or wandered away. And so there are definitely those within the faith, those within the flock that have done that, and still do today. And we know that's a thing that happens because we're told that we, like sheep, have gone astray. That's a very clear illustration, and all of us have done that. And we and I don't want to say that we do it all the time, because apostasy is a totally different thing than just plain old sin. Sin would just be that we aimed and we missed the target. We've talked about that, how sin is missing the target. Apostasy is more like, if you imagine, a sheep is inside its pasture. It's got fencing around it, so there's a perimeter. There are areas in which the sheep knows where it's supposed to be, and they're guided in that area. And they've got a shepherd, and many times they have a dog or sheepdogs or something to help with the process. And they see an open gate or a hole in the fence, and they forcefully go through it. So in other words, I have what I need within the pasture. I have all that I desire is truly, honestly, in the pastured area inside that pen. But I'm intentionally going to go through that gate or find that hole in the fence and intentionally go outside of that area. So for me, and this is something we really didn't go too deep into this morning into the message, to talk a whole lot about this, because it was really focused on the other side of this. But to understand that is what we're talking about when we say the word an apostate, or who the people we're talking about here in James chapter 5. And I believe what James is talking about here in chapter 5 at the end. So if there are sheep who have gone astray, who have forcefully walked out the gate or found the hole in the fence and gone on to another area, we have options. So I want to kind of picture us for a second as sheepdogs. And this is a fun illustration, and I'm enjoying this. Is we have a friend down the road from us who raises these collies, and beautiful black and white little collies, and they're just wound tighter than a drum. They are just ready to work all the time. And she has them trained for sheep herding, and she actually does those competitions. If you remember seeing the movie Babe, where the little pig learns how to maneuver the sheep through the obstacles, this is what we're talking about. I mean, she has them set up out in the pasture where she can herd them around, herd a sheep around the field. He can separate sheep. He can do all kinds of stuff, or she, the little dogs, and then move them through these crossed obstacles and over and through obstacles. It's really neat to watch. And there's just occasions where I just have to stop and watch them work. And the great thing is, it's always on the command of the shepherd. Always on the command of the shepherd, and the shepherd will, yeah, that'll do, pig. That's exactly it. Now, all this, that's the thing they get, right? But anyway, she'll work these dogs, and they're always just on her ear. They are on her voice. their ears are always tuned to her voice. So it's not just the sheep that know the shepherd; it's the sheepdogs. It's those that are out there working the group. And she's walked I don't know, probably 2 miles down the road with these dogs without being on a leash, and walked them down here and walked around. And if she says one of their names, they're perked up, they're ready to go. Or she gives a command to one dog, the rest of them, they're hunkered down on the ground waiting for the call. And hey, Tish, how are you? So anyway, I just love watching these dogs work. So if we will, just for a moment, looking at James chapter 5, verses 19 and 20, kind of picture ourselves, and I know I don't want this to sound rude or whatever, but picture ourselves for just a moment as sheepdogs. Okay? If we are already within the body of Christ, we have an option of either being just the sheep, which is okay, being sheep, but many are called to be sheepdogs, or those ones that are out there working the herd or working the flock, so to speak. And then there is, let's consider for a moment the idea that there is a sheep that has gone astray. They've forcefully, again, I'll say this, they've apostated. They've forcefully made their way outside the fenced-in area. They've gone out the gate. They've forced their way through a hole in the fence. They're intentionally leaving. So we have three options, in my opinion. The three options are let them go. Number two, chase after them wholeheartedly and bring them back. Or number three, just slowly, easily track them down and draw them back in. Now, there have been occasions where when I was a kid, my dad being the shepherd here on the farm when we had sheep, if a sheep would get out, it was very simple. The sheep knew the shepherd's voice. So he could get out with a bucket of feed or gravel. He could put gravel in the bucket. And he would shake that bucket and holler and hit. It's so funny. My dad sang bass, but when he would holler for the sheep, there was this high pitched, sheep, and he would do that, and the sheep would come running, no matter where he was at or what he was doing. As a general rule, most, if not all, the sheep would come running. And as a general rule, for most of the sheep, there was usually one lead sheep who everybody else kind of got in line and came in behind. But there was always one. There was always an idiot, that just ran off. So we would have to go chase them down. Guess who? And some of them were very frustrating to go after. But on occasion, it was necessary for us to kind of ease around them, kind of work your way out in behind them, and just kind of slowly work their way up. Because there were sheep who you could not drive, you could not push, you had to gently bring them back in. So those three options are: let them go. They intended to go through the hole. They intended to go through the gate, and intention to go off and live whatever way they wanted to live. And how I illustrated that was this morning. We used to raise some beef cows as well. And one day I was bringing all the cows in, and I did the one thing you don't do, especially around Charolais cows. Charolais cows are notorious for being kind of wild. So I turned my back to grab a hold of the gate and close the gate. And as I turned my back, I kind of felt this cow coming at me. And as I turned to see what was going on, this cow jumped and put a hoof and a hoof right on my stomach and my chest, and went through that tube gate out into the pasture, ran towards the fence, jumped over the fence, gone. So if that was a cow that I really was concerned about, or was one of, say, our show cows or whatever, I would have really been intent about going after this cow. But this cow was an absolute pain in the rear end from the moment we got her on the trailer. I just shut the gate. I just finished the gate, closed it up, went about my business. I didn't even think about it. Well, we did find out eventually this steer ended up in the neighbor's herd, and he had pretty much all black Angus. And he was like, "This was kind of weird. There was this, all of a sudden there was this Charolais, which is a white cow. It was just in my herd." So that's odd. That's really kind of crazy. I wonder where that came from. Knowing where it came from, but hey, congratulations, buddy. You got another cow. I didn't want that cow. Anyway, So yeah, it was definitely a determined cow, free willy moment. But yeah, it jumped. I mean, over and through that, over the top, and off it went. So anyway, I that was kind of my illustration, thinking about how sometimes there are people who are so intent and wildly intent on going outside the gate and wandering off that there's nothing can stop them. I mean, I just felt like that cow right there, if it had been a door, if it had been anything, he'd have gone through it, over it, whatever to get out. He was just mad about it. And sometimes there are people that, I understand the whole 99 and 1, but there are people who have true intent of just being an apostate, leaving, going away, straying away. And what I want us to look at is that idea that in James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20, it says they are um, they're wandering from the truth. Uh, so it's not necessarily just the sin issue; it's that they're intending on going away from the truth. And this, like this cow in particular, bold, determined, just had to leave and wander from the truth. And I'm not just talking about just from a church. I don't want it to look like that because there are people who do go from church to church and find what they're looking for and all that kind of fun stuff. And some just church hop, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about from the truth. And when I say the truth, hey Brian at the Vineyard Farmhouse, when I say the truth, we need to have an understanding of what the truth is because there's this issue in our world today where truth is this vapor out there that you just can't quite, it's your truth, my truth, her truth, his truth, their truth, whatever. You're just out there, you have your truth. And and I understand it's from a biblical standpoint or a Christian standpoint, but I'm a believer in Christ. Therefore, if you are a believer in Christ, we have to follow the words of Christ. And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no man comes to the Father except through me. So if whether we have other beliefs within our world as far as our Christian beliefs and some of these theological debates and things that are going on, we have to begin in this concept with this idea that there is truth. We have to do that. We have to get to the point where we can say to each other, especially as those who are believers in Christ, to say there is truth, not your truth, my truth, their truth, whatever, that there is truth. And Jesus declares it. It is him. And we can work from the doctrinal issues and the theological issues from there. But until we come to that idea, we're out there grasping. And I think that is where people end up on the apostate side, where they end up outside the fence looking for something else, is that they've misunderstood the idea, or they've missed the idea that inside there I have the shepherd taking care of me, the dogs watch over me, the sheepdogs watch over me, I have pasture, I have feed, I have comfort, I have shelter. And it's just it's kind of a struggle. And so I'm going to talk about the second group of people, or the second group of those who go outside the fence. The other group we're talking about um, is those who wander. That's crazy, Tish. Uh, she says our pastor taught this very thing today. That's crazy. So we have those other sheep or other animals that literally just kind of wander, and they find themselves outside the fence. And I've seen sheep do that before, where they go outside the fence and then they'll butt against the fence, like, man, I got to get back in. I got to get back in. I don't know how I got out here. And there's a hole in the fence, and they can't remember where the hole is in the fence, and all that kind of fun stuff. And so for them, yeah, you got to get outside the fence, draw them back in, kind of point them towards the hole. And sometimes it's hard to get them directed back in where they need to go. Um, and so for them, yeah, you do take your time, go after them, and draw them back in order that they might be safe and feel safe again within the confines of the pasture, and in the flock. And the crazy part is when they come back in, it's almost inevitable. You see them run to the flock. They run directly to the flock and want to get back in the flock, into the safety of it. So that's that second group, and then there is that third group, um, that I don't think wants to run and go do their own thing. I think sometimes they're spooked or scared or angry, frustrated, whatever. And the illustration that I used today, and we'll get to how we approach that, was a calf, heifer. It wasn't a calf; it was a heifer. It was a pretty much like a yearling heifer, that the kids were showing, and it broke loose from the halter, got away. And long story short, Eli was going to go after it, draw it back in, put the halter on it, bring it back in. And I didn't see it that way. I literally ran the cow down and did the old bulldog like you would in a rodeo, and brought it down to the ground and put the halter on, and brought it back in. And so there are some different approaches to how we treat or how we approach the those that have gone astray and are running off. And with that cow, I don't think they had intention of running down the road and running off and never being around us again. I think they were just a spooked, scared, whatever, and we just had to draw them back in and bring them back in. Sometimes forcefully, sometimes with a lot of energy and intent. So here's what I want to talk about in James chapter 5, verse 19. We have some responsibilities. The responsibility to the flock as sheepdogs is to um, track them, go after them, go after the wanderer. Uh, in the Message, James chapter 5, verse 19 says, "My dear friends, if you know people who have wandered off from God's truth, don't write them off, go after them." And Galatians 6:1 says, "Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted." And then we talk about if your brother sins, you talk to go and show them their fault in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. That's Matthew 18, verse 15. And that was really, really cool when I listened to that. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. And that's a cool thing, that if we go out and we track this person down who is a brother or a sister, and we have to point it out. And when you point, here's the challenge: when you point people's sin out to them, there's going to be a couple things that may happen. First is, much like everybody else in the world, they're going to use two verses on you. Now, everybody in the world knows these two verses in some form or fashion, and chances are they even know them in King James English. It's an amazing thing. First one is, what's the one everybody knows? When you say, "Hey, that thing you're doing, that's sinful, you need to change your ways," what's the first one they do, Eli? Do it.
Let me get I had my mic back too. And do judge not, lest ye be judged.
There it is.
That's
the one everybody knows, man. They're all about that "judge not, lest you be judged." And the other one they know is from Matthew 7:5. And it starts, it's really, really familiar. "You hypocrite. You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." And where that is accurate, just quoting that is massively out of context. You have to look at the whole of that. And so what you're going to get out of the majority of people, and this is nature. Don't point out my faults. You've got faults too. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day about a particular topic. And their response is, "Well, we all sin. We all sin." And I said, "Well, that doesn't make it okay. It just, it's still sin, right?" And so that's the first response. And I'm going to take Kenny's comment here. I agree with you 100% about truth. I have a friend I work with, and he is from India, the nicest person in the world, but he's not a Christian. He knows I am. How do you deal with people from other faiths? And we'll get to that, definitely. If you want to mark that down, that's something I want to get to. Yeah, definitely. People don't like it when you point this out. But let's start in this way. And Paul writes to the church at Thessalonica, 2 Thessalonians 3:15. Don't think of them as enemies, but speak to them as you would a Christian who needs to be warned. So, as sheepdogs, what's our purpose? If we are sheepdogs, what is our purpose? I mean, the shepherd watches over the flock, but what is the purpose of the sheepdogs? Well, the sheepdog's purpose is to keep the herd safe. You know, they're gonna work and try to keep them out of those danger areas. So if we are the sheepdogs, our purpose is to track them down and keep them from being in harm. You see, if they go outside the fence, I'm telling you right now, if you had sheep around here and they're out and about late at night with no protection, there's a significant possibility that they're going to get a coyote, get into them and kill them. And so there are dangers out there. There are definite dangers out there. Eric says, I'll lurk in the background. Well, that's quite all right. If you have any questions or thoughts, just let us know, Eric. Great to have you, buddy. So, again, taking that approach in love that we know we have to get after them and find them. The hard part is pointing out that sin. Again, pointing out the idea that you gotta redirect them back into that place where they were before that they went through. That's the hard part, is to have them not get scared, not get spooked, and then understand they need to get back in the pen. It's best for them if they get back in the pen. And sometimes they just don't want to hear it. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to be brought back, um, and they will point out your faults. And I think that's the first struggle that we have with the idea of the apostate, those who are outside of the truth. So how do we do that? Well, on occasion, you just start with that. You track them down, you get to them, and you don't do it with any kind of animosity. Like, just don't think of them as enemies. Uh, we approach them in such a way that they can see that our intentions are good. And hello to Thomas Goodymood and Joko KS Cop Watch. That's a heck of a one there. Great to have you guys in here, and good to see Thomas. But the approach is the key to them, and but the idea is we got to get to them first. Now, here's the thing. Um, I remember very clearly one time we had somebody else come over and milk our cows. One time we were all gone, and he talked about how the cows didn't want to come in, didn't want to do the things they were supposed to do, and it's pretty clear why. None of the herdsmen were there. So first thing we have to understand is the people who are those apostates, they need to be able to trust who's coming after them. You know, those sheep that I talk about right there, they know that dog. They know those dogs inside and out. They know their barks, they know their moves, they know what their smell, everything about them. So we have to be uh, ones who know the flock and know the people well enough to know, okay, there's going to be people that Eli can reach that I can't reach because that level of trust and knowledge. And there's going to be people that you guys can reach and reach out to bring back that I can't. You can't just say, okay, point them to so and so on, those people trust you, and so you've got to establish that from the beginning. Go track them down, find them, and then make those efforts to bring them back. And again, the approach out of that is in love. And so first thing we talk about what our responsibility is to track them, and then the next part I want to get to in just a second. But the second response that people will have is, okay, yeah, you're right. I don't want to be where I'm at right now. Help me get back. And for them, for us as sheepdog, that's the best one. That's the best one. You're right. I screwed up. I need back. Show me where to get back. The third one is um, is hard, but not as hard as the first one. The first one is, you hypocrite, stay away from me. I want out of here. The third one is more challenge, but it's a it's a beautiful thing to watch when they're resistant, but yet you can see that they know they need to be back. They want to be back, where that's safe, where it's comfort, where it's, taken care of. And so they need more time. They need more work. They need more love. And so the idea at this point is the second part. Our second responsibility is to guide them. Once we track them down, we assess, okay, how are we going to get them back? Or is it even, on our own? No way. How do we let God help us guide them back? And for some, the true apostate is gone. They run off. And I understand, the 99 and 1, you go after them. It doesn't, the 99 and 1 doesn't mean that every time you go out after the one's going to come back, or that you're going to be able to find it. And so we have to understand that you go out looking for the one, but that doesn't mean you always come back with the one. But you got to come back. You got to come back at some point in time. That's the hardest decision in dealing with this, is when you decide to come back to the 99, to the flock. That's a hard part. And it's not just anyway. So we guide them back in, and you treat others. Matthew 7:12. That's the way we start. We treat others, you would have them treat you. And the golden rule. Speaking the truth in love, out of Ephesians 4:15. And again, understanding the truth is what? Well, Jesus is the truth. He spoke that of himself. And so really that is the key. And people can tell people can tell when you're, as a general rule, when you're honest and forthright with them, when you're legitimate. And they can spot a scammer, as a general rule, especially when they're on the lam, when they're off on their own. They're going to be on their guard. And the reason why I say that, I'll get to that here in a second. So speak the truth in love, and in a spirit of gentleness, but yet never give up. So we have to be persistent, gentle, and loving. That's hard. That's hard, because persistent, we don't want to be persistent necessarily. First of all, that's hard to do, because you're like, hey, you're stop it. You get back. It's what you need to do. We know you need to do it. You know you need to do it. And so the persistency is the hard thing. I think we can do it in love. I don't think we terribly have a hard time with that, but pay attention to that. Pay attention to doing that thing in love, speaking the truth in love. And you got to know again, that's more of where you got to know them. You got to know how to speak to them. If you've ever coached or been around like youth sports or sports, there are certain athletes that you can absolutely just rip into, and they will come out spitting fire and eating nails, and nobody can stop them. They're an amazing response as an athlete. And there are certain people, if you jump in their stuff during a game as a coach, you've lost them. They're done, and they break down. Have you ever done, any kind of sports? You'll understand that there are certain people who respond to things a certain way. And if there were certain athletes, like if a coach came to me and he's like, "Now, Troy, I know you're struggling here, and I know things," that I'd be like, "Get out of my face," But if a coach got in my crap and got after me, but you better look out. I mean, there'd be blood flying out of my face, and whatever. And I was there to tear up stuff. That was my response. And so we have to know how to address people, and you can do that with love. You can even get in their stuff. You can even get in their crap with love, and the spirit of gentleness. But on occasion, what do you got to do? There's that calf, that heifer that's running wild. You got to rein them in. And sometimes it takes a bulldog approach. You just got to know. That's the key. That's the hardest thing. And so that means we got to be praying. We got to be praying to God. Hey, help me here. Let me know which way to approach. Do I get after him? Do I bulldog it? Do I gently move and guide, or what do I do? Go ahead.
Hold on, let me get my mic back on. And to move away from the analogy and back to real life, I think that's where the importance of being daily into the scriptures, listening to, people older and wiser than you, seeking godly counsel and seeking that godly wisdom to take on those situations. Just to know, okay. And, like you said, having the trust with somebody is one thing, but also being able to back up. Like Kenny brought up the idea, the hypocrite argument. I hear it all the time, and it's kind of hard to argue against because there are hypocrites in the church. That's coming to those arguments and coming to those, and honestly, I don't think a lot of people are necessarily arguing with you. It's more so they're searching. Most people are trying to search for a truth and for hope, and that's their natural response. But being able to speak on godly principles and be able to kind of rebuke what they're saying and come back with facts and scripture, and again being able to say that all in love, that's the big thing. Being able to be prepared for those conversations, not just when the time comes. Jesus is the way.
Right.
You always get those people who come at you with a hypocrite argument, and you try to argue with scripture, and they're like, where are you arguing, outside of that? You can't always argue with scripture to somebody who's not a fan of scripture.
Right. Yeah. And this is that big challenge between apostasy and someone who is not a believer at all. So the apostate is one who has forcefully walked out of the gate and walked away. And so that's two different challenges all in one. But yeah, you're absolutely right in that.
I think that brings, the two different challenges you have are like you said, the people who have run away from church probably harder than somebody who's a non-believer or believes of another religion. At least they're, in a religion, and they would, like to hear more theological discussion versus somebody who's been in it and decided, I've been hurt by the church, I want to be away from this now. Yeah. I don't want to hear church things.
Right. Yeah. And I'll kind of make note of that too. There's two things I want to get is
you got to make note. It's 20 minutes still into the show.
All right. So I'll get finished up here. So number 3 in that, before we get to that, or as we get to that, I want to say this: the third responsibility we have as those sheepdogs is save them. That's the ultimate goal here, is to get them back in the flock. Now let me clarify that. When I say back in the flock, I don't mean to my church building. They've wandered from the truth. That's what the scripture tells us here today. And in James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20, is they've wandered from the truth, not from my church building. And as essential as I think belonging to a body of Christ is, that's not the thing we're trying to get them back to. We're trying to get them back to, and again, this is a person who's already been a believer. We're trying to get them back to the truth, because that's what the thing that they've wandered from. So the idea is to save them. And what are we saving them from? Well, if we're talking about someone who is a non-believer, we're trying to save them from themselves, from their sin, right? And that we're trying to get them away from the danger that they're headed towards. As sheepdogs bringing the apostate, the one who's wandered off from the truth, we're trying to get them back. That's two totally different things. And so we need to save them from that imminent danger. Now, if you've ever seen a shepherd's crook in real life, the shepherd's crook that would have been like in biblical times, and honestly the ones that have been used for thousands and thousands of years, are not some pretty ornate loopy thing, okay? It is 2 sticks at an angle, lashed together with sinew and rope and stuff like that. And they're in I should use that hand. They're in a V, upside down, okay? And the purpose is, okay, they can push and they can do that, but the purpose of the hook is very simple. On occasion, if a sheep would get down in a crevice or down near a body of water or in danger, they literally could take that hook and up underneath the jaw of a sheep and pull them up out of the danger. Now, granted, it's not a really comfortable thing. It's not a really comfortable thing for that sheep to go through, and it's not a really comfortable thing for the shepherd to go through, because it's a risk on their part that they might hurt the sheep doing it. But if they leave them alone and just say, "Come back, sheep, come here," the sheep is going to be in danger. So that hook was very intentional, in that if they were in imminent danger, the object is get down with that hook, yank them up out of that danger, to save them, to bring them back into the flock, because they're valued And that's the idea, is that they are valued and to save them. So if somebody listens, James 5:19 and 17 says that you will save them from death. If you go to them and tell them about this and they listen, you save them from death. Man, that is monstrous. That's powerful. And obviously that's a spiritual death. We're all going to die a physical death. And then the other thing it says is it covers sin. That's what it does. It brings them back into that protection and into the fold, as they say. You've won your brother, at Matthew 18:15 says. That's huge. And if one doesn't listen, I want you to hear this. Ezekiel 3:18 and 19 says this: you have fulfilled your responsibility and will thus avoid sharing in his or her fate. That's tough. That's a tough one because we want to bring everybody back. And if they refuse, you be persistent, but at some point in time, Jesus sent out the disciples in groups of two. And when they came back and they tried to do all these things, and he says at some point in time, guys, you got to literally, he says, shake the dust off your feet, off your sandals, and move on to the next town. There is a point in time, and it's a really hard thing to do, to say, okay, all right, I got sheep that need caring for back here. I've told you, I've shown you, what's inside the pasture. Okay. And personal responsibility. Okay. All right. Now, here's the last thing I want to bring to you. Treat people and our flock like this. Understand something. Look at the eyes on animals, and the eyes will tell you a great deal. If you look at like sheep, horses, cows, things like that, where are the eyes? The eyes are on the side of the head. And biologically speaking, that means that they are prey. So prey animals have eyes on the side of their head. Predators have eyes on the front of their head, because the predator is always looking for whom he can devour. You guys know that one. So the predator is always looking ahead and scanning for prey. The predator is always looking around, or the prey is always looking around for the predator. And so the hard part here is, if you ever dealt with animals like being led or whatever, here's what we have to understand. Some sheep and a lot of animals like that can't be driven. They can't be pushed from behind. And if you put a halter on an animal, most animals don't want to be dragged by that halter. So the best way to lead and guide and save an animal in that situation is to do what? Walk alongside them, because their eyes are here. If they can see you, they're comforted. And so they'll walk easier if that's the case. And so we can walk alongside people. We have a better tendency to bring them back and save them from that. All right. So I'm going to take a look at some of what's going on here. I've got a couple other thoughts that if we need to throw in here at the end, we can do that. And so what were the two basic things that I was supposed to address there, Eli?
Kenny kind of brought up both. Mic on. Kenny kind of brought up both of them. The first one being addressing somebody who's a non-believer, or more specifically, a friend that he has who is a believer of another religion. I believe he said Sikh, whatever, of a similar Hindu religion. And then the other one was the argument from people who have left the flock is, you're a bunch of hypocrites. I got hurt by the church, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Really, the other religion, it's really kind of an interesting thing, because I have a friend who was, as he described it, born Muslim. Okay, so he says, I'm a Muslim by birth, I'm a Christian by faith. Okay, so he was Muslim as a result of his birth, his upbringing, where he lived. But as he looked at the scriptures, and they have, even in the Muslim faith, they have a belief that at the very least, Jesus was a great prophet and a great teacher. And what he decided, and many Muslims have done, and there's a great lot of research and work being done, to talk to Muslims and people of other faith is if you look at it's kind of easier on the Muslim side because if you say, okay, let's go back to the beginning, let's go back to Abraham, let's go back to Adam and all that, let's go back to there because we have that common ground in Abraham. Let's go back there, and if we accept Abraham as the father of many nations, um, we can extrapolate that out that the issue with Hagar was a mistake, that it was not God's will. It's hard to say mistake. You can't necessarily say that because that would get them fired up. Is that the thing with Hagar was not God's will, that they kind of circumvented God's will, then that leads you to Jesus. I mean, that's a direct line to Jesus at that point. And so he, Z, that's his name. It's the best way to say his name. He said, just call me Z. As he said, as a result of looking at that as that common ground, I was led to Jesus and led to be a follower of Jesus. And there's I won't bring up the gentleman's name. There's a friend of ours in this area who is working very, very intently with Muslims. He's not even permitted back in his home country because of the work he's doing. But when it comes to like in Hindu religion, in Hinduism, they have this kind of universalist idea about faith, and I would say in that case, take Paul's approach. Okay, so to the polytheistic or to the ones who have many gods or many ideas or this open door, direct them in Paul's way. And Paul on Mars Hill starts pointing out all the gods, and he said, then over here you have a statue or a monument to the unknown God, or the altar to the unknown God. I want to talk to you about that one. So I think the approach there is like Paul did. I become all things to all people, so that some may know Christ. Is that very idea that we take his approach to some people who are kind of the open door. Okay, well, if it's an open door, how open is it? If it's a universalist approach, how universalist is it? And so, as far as those three major religions and Judaism or the Jewish faith is kind of a hard nut to crack into a certain extent because there are certain levels of Judaism. The Hasidic Jews are like, okay, Messiah is a done deal, and we don't need that anymore. But to those of the major religions, there are easy approaches, not easy approaches, but easier approaches than what we think. We think we can't break that nut. The hard one, the two hardest I see are people who've grown up in the church and have apostate. The second is people who forcefully don't want anything to do with God because of the church. And not because of the church, but because of people in the church. So the hardest thing to do is to overcome the hypocrite argument and also to overcome the apostate. So those two things to me are the hardest when trying to reach out to people. I don't know. Hopefully, Kenny, that kind of took a little while to explain, but I think the basic thing I would say is find common ground. Start with a common ground and work from there. And I will tell you guys, and we brought this up this morning, is of the people surveyed, I think it was a Barna research, people surveyed of who directly brought you to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, 2%, anywhere from 2 to 5, max out at 5%. It was a direct connection or a direct result of a minister or pastor, whatever. 2 to 5%. What that means is people are not making their religious faithful decisions based upon the preacher. They're making it based upon what they know and the relationships they have with people who are Christians. So the sheepdog is the most important piece of this puzzle. So the shepherd trains the sheepdog. The shepherd trains the sheepdog. The sheepdog goes out and protects the flock and brings the flock in. So, don't just go out and say, well, that's the preacher's job, or that's, I could never do that. You can make impacts in ways that the preacher can never do, that the pastor can never do. There are people whose lives, I went to a funeral yesterday of a guy, and he was like, we were good friends. And this guy was saying he was doing the funeral. I was good friends with so-and-so. And then he said, "Now I got this sheet of stuff that I didn't know." He started reading through the obituary finally, and he said, "I didn't know about this guy, and I didn't know about this guy." And all the things that he didn't know about this guy were common knowledge to every other individual sitting in the seats at the funeral. But he was good friends with this guy, and it literally came down to the fact that he didn't know his flock, he didn't know his people, and so the other people had more of an effect, and more possibility to make an effect in their lives. You have more of an effect on the lives of people than you know, definitely.
Kind of jump off of that, a little story from my college days, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So we had well, I'll back it up even a little bit further. My best friend coming out of college, phenomenal guy in promoting, the gospel and the organization that we were in part of, and brought everybody from every religion into it and got them involved. So we really befriended a gentleman who was Muslim, and he and I kind of started, hanging out a little bit. He went to the gym a lot when I was working out a lot. So, we kind of met there and kind of hung out while we were working out. It got to the point where, became very good friends. And he's still a very close friend of mine. Now he's back in Saudi Arabia. But one night he had us over for dinner and made this extravagant dinner for me and another friend. And then 2 other people he invited as well. And we knew of them, but not necessarily like close friends with them. But we're also involved in a Christian organization. So anyways, we get to this big spread. I mean, he's made everything for us and set out this beautiful dinner for us. Just kind of a thank you for being my friend and befriending me here while I'm in the States. So he's got talking, and he kind of starts serving tea and everything. And the 2 others immediately go into, why are you a Muslim? Why are you attacking, just, shoving Jesus down his throat. And my friend and I were kind of sitting there like, wow, this is a terrible way to try to get somebody to convert to, Christianity.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of, very, very kind of standoffish and back there. I would say hi to Wayne and Belt Loop 29.
Yep.
Hey. But yeah, so we kind of finish up with dinner, and they leave almost kind of.
Sorry.
No, you're good. They leave kind of almost angry that they didn't get a conversion. They didn't get a win for Jesus out of that one.
Yeah.
But so they leave, and my friend and I are kind of hanging out there still with him, helping him clean up and everything. And he gave us leftovers because they don't believe in leftovers apparently. So we get the leftovers, and we kind of just hang out with him. We're like, you good if we stay here for a little while and just hang out? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. And he brought up the fact that they were just kind of shoving Jesus down his throat. And he said, if I were to ever, he's like, and I don't claim myself to be a devout Muslim.
Yeah.
Which kind of made me feel belittled because he still did the whole 5 times stop today to pray to Mecca, and I was thinking, it's like, wow, I barely prayed for lunch this morning. But he said, after all that conversation we had, he said, if I were to ever convert to Christianity, he said, I like the approach you guys take, where it's not a shove Jesus down my throat, it's a become my friend, learn about me. And it's because of the simple fact, like, I don't know anything about his faith. And I was like, teach me about your faith. Tell me where we can find these, like you said, commonalities. I don't know anything about Muslims. How am I going to engage Muslims if I don't talk to Muslims?
Right.
So we had this conversation till like 3:00 in the morning, and he's still part of his faith, but he definitely came away from a different understanding. He was like, so not all Christians are street preachers. They're not all Bible thumpers. There are some of us that like to learn and engage. And like you said, know your flock, know your friends, know the people that you're surrounded by.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Alec just sent me last time.
Oh, okay.
Just now.
But yeah, I not to toot my own horn on that one, but I think that approach gained us an opportunity to talk to somebody about a faith who would have otherwise not talked about our faith, because he was getting Jesus, one way from people versus, a way that actually related to him, because people came to him as friends.
Very good. One of the things that was brought up last time had to do with persecution, and we are 7:58. I will say this much. 2 things. Paul spoke to the idea, and he said, consider it pure joy when you go through struggles of any kind. I don't think he was particularly talking about persecution, even though he was definitely persecuted. So taking the other side to that is, here in the United States, and we can have this debate if you want, but we don't know what persecution is. We do not know what persecution is. There are places. Again, I have dear friends, and I don't mean that just acquaintances. I have dear friends that if we mention their name on this stream, there are people who are listening who are waiting to kill them right now. Yeah. Like there is a hit on their lives because they speak the name of Jesus. I'm weak. I am weak. The people of other places, and I see Bibles being passed out, and we're preparing to send a bunch of Bibles over to a country where that's illegal and has been prohibited for some time, but they're actually opening that up as a possibility. And I watch them carry their scriptures around in sealed bags and just carrying it like a precious item. And I've got thousands, hundreds of versions sitting in front of me, and I got one sits here I got a Bible that sits here in the shop. I carry one with me on my phone. I've got 12 of them in my office. I've got one downstairs and one in my truck. So it's just, I have no idea what persecution is wholeheartedly, but to deal with persecution, one of the questions Eric asked Pumpkin Patch, what is worse, torture and slavery, or leading people away from God? Leading people away from God. Unequivocally. Leading people away from God is worse than torture or slavery. Way worse. Because the scripture, as we read this evening, says you're going to be held accountable for that. When we saw that a minute ago, we saw that if in Ezekiel 3:18 and 19, you have fulfilled your responsibility, and thus will avoid sharing in his or her fate. So if we lead people astray, you might as well keep on going. I mean, if you go outside the fence and you keep on doing what you're doing, and you get led into the thing that the other, whatever it was you were chasing, just keep on going. Otherwise, if you do share it and you try to work with them, bring them back, and they refuse it, you're out. You're okay to go on to the next person and try to bring them back in. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, leading somebody astray. That's why I take what I do so seriously. Is that when I know when I talk to people about Jesus and about my faith, is that I'm going to be held accountable for that, for what I say. Yeah, it's way worse. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Bill.
I know we're kind of coming in end of time.
Yeah.
But don't take that revelationally. I would say that would be a really good topic into the next Sundays at 7. Something, and not to knock on the Baptist community, but it was something I was around in the eastern part of Kentucky. It's very prominent down there is for their dominant denomination. Was the phrase like once saved, always saved.
Yeah.
And not to get in on that tonight, but I think that's something that would definitely be an interesting topic of discussion for the next time.
Okay.
If you're up for it.
Yeah. Well, let's just do that. Since Eli brought it up, and next time we are together in 2 weeks, 2 Sundays, we'll talk on the idea of, and this will be
that's a deep one.
It'll be hardcore of the idea of salvation, or it's being saved. That word. And let me preempt it by saying, I'll kind of stir you guys up here at the end. Let me just say, I am not a fan of the phrase.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the phrase, especially the phrase "got saved."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that phrase at all, and I'll be able to explain that very in depth next time we are together. So yeah, we'll have that topic. If you guys do have topics of discussion, or if I didn't address something here this evening, please make note of that. Let us know. Send us an email, send me a text, or call me. If you have questions.
Just not tomorrow.
Yeah, just not tomorrow. I will be occupied. There's a reason why I'm drinking only clear fluids and candies at the moment. Getting the old garden hose up and down tomorrow, so I gotta behave myself.
Yeah.
But anyway,
no late night zebra cakes.
No. So call me, text me, email, whatever. And here's the other thing I want to have you guys do. How many do you have in the chat?
15 currently.
15. And we had a few more, maybe.
Yeah, 15.
Okay. So, and I know some are couples actually listening right now, and I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
Such an amazing thing. And again, don't take that what Troy spoke is the ultimate answer for anything, okay? This is my take on things. I don't claim to be the authority. I just claim the authority. I claim who has the authority. Matthew 28, 19, and 20. All authority in heaven and earth is given unto me. That's Jesus speaking, not Troy. But I'll do my best. I'll do my absolute best, and I give it wholeheartedly my heart to it, and I'll do my absolute best to do that. Share this with people. This is an opportunity we all have, and I got to give you guys credit, so much credit, because you have just really taken a great approach to this. We did have concern about this. There would be people who come in and kind of try to start, fights, essentially.
Yeah.
And we've not seen an ounce of that.
Yeah.
I've just been so blessed by that.
Crazy enough, outside of the Sundays at 7, we've never really seen that on our channel.
No.
And we have over 3,000 some odd subscribers. So,
yeah.
Granted, being a small channel, but we've rarely experienced any type of pushback, hatefulness, anything. No. I think up until our 50th video, we didn't have a dislike.
Right. So I would like to encourage you guys, share this out and put it on your calendar. What's the next one, Eli?
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
Be the 30th?
It'll be the 30th.
Yep.
April the 30th.
April 30th.
Oh, boy. Okay. April the 30th, 7 p.m., right back here. That's the end of the month. Come back and join us and have topics of conversation and questions.
And encourage you to share, the people who you guys, have on your hearts and have on your minds and brought up in the discussion. Share it with, share this with them. And
encourage them in such a way that, hey,
yeah.
I know you guys are concerned about the whole judgment thing and, whatever. It's, hey, come in and just listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just come in and listen, because you're not getting it here. You're getting truth, but you're not going to get that whole, somebody shaking their fist at you and telling you how wrong you are. So please, please share this out, and please put it on your calendar, almost like, okay, well, Sundays, every other Sunday at 7. This
Bible
is where
study.
We're going to be, like a Bible study.
There you go.
Exactly. So anyway, God bless you guys. Hopefully we'll see some of you all this coming weekend coming up at the gathering.
Absolutely.
If you have an opportunity, it's not too late. Let us know that you're able to be here.
Check out the
website. Love
website.
to have you here over the weekend and hang out with us.
Kenny wants to talk about exorcisms.
Yeah, I've seen that. That will be another topic all by itself for sure. Kenny came in at 8:00 something with that one, right? He's been here the whole time and waited till that nugget in. Thanks a lot, buddy. Anyway, Eli, anything else for the fine folks?
Nope. Like always, like, share, subscribe, and again, share it with people. So that's my big thing.
This for us is not about the channel.
Yeah.
This is about you guys and about the opportunity to share. If this doesn't add one subscriber, we're fine.
Yeah.
We don't care about that, or a like or a dislike or whatever. We just want to share. So God bless you guys. We will see you on the next one, April 30th.
Yep.
For Sundays at 7 and Thursday night live stream,
Yep.
6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard
Probably
Time.
be live a couple times this weekend with the gathering. So
Very much so.
Stay tuned. There'll probably be a lot of stuff coming up on Bar Run Forge in the next 2 weeks.
There you go. After we said we don't care about the subs, and we're like, hey, make sure you like, share.
No.
Anyway, God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.